we're back now with Datto's MSP Tech Day for our next session on CloudRadial reporting. So again, it's Jeff here, President and CEO of CloudRadial, and Ricky Cecchini, who's our Director of Development. And this session, we're going to go through CloudRadial reporting and talk about how we go about, do the deep dive on CloudRadial reporting and how that fits in things. CloudRadial reporting is part of this CloudRadial integrated single pane of glass that we provide that brings together account management, service, and clients together to get everybody on the same page. Again, CloudRadial helps everybody work better and work better together. And again, we've got a lot of common areas here. In this session, we're going to focus on just a few of these. On the reporting areas, we're going to touch on compliance, the report archives, policy compliance. Reporting can, I mean, in one sense, can cover all of this. We're going to deep dive on these things today. Key points on CloudRadial reporting, and I think it's important that, especially as you come to see it, CloudRadial is a client-facing tool. So everything basically in CloudRadial is designed to present to the client. And with CloudRadial reporting, we have pulled together Office 365, we pulled together your PSA, whether it's Synchro, Autotask, especially Autotask, clearly, or a variety of other choices. We pulled that data together along with some other integrations from things like Datto BDR devices, from Have I Been Pawned. Our goal is to pull together as many integrations as possible to bring all this data into the portal. But we have this unique feature called report archives, which basically, if you can generate an email out of any existing system, such as BrightGauge or RMM, your PSA, backup, anything that can generate an email can be sent to these report archives. So basically, CloudRadial will give you the ability to report on every single service you deliver to clients. It's designed for your clients. And the bottom line, what makes this so powerful is that its goal is to automate all of this. So as you bring together these tools together into one pane of glass, as you bring these reports back through a common email storage, as you bring all this together from our own agent and other tools that are out there, the goal is to bring all this together in an automated way. So once you set it up, the reporting systems work daily automatically, just like they do for your internal needs today. So just like you have internal reporting for your service team and your own metrics, CloudRadial will make those metrics available, or a lot of those metrics available to your clients as well, so they have that information every single day as well. The important part about all of this, really from a reporting perspective, is really two things. One is it enables compliance. And when we talk about compliance, we can talk about that in the regulatory way, which will help clients comply with their requirements for HIPAA or GDPR or Sarbanes-Oxley. Lots of requirements out there that clients have to meet. And the reporting and the archive capability keeps those clients compliant with their requirements. On the other hand, it also helps you to be compliant with the contracts that you have with your clients. So if you're compliant, if you promise to do backup, it shows that you're being compliant with your backup obligations because it's going to provide that report. If you're monitoring security every day, it's going to show the clients that you're compliant with your obligations there because you can produce those security reports back to CloudRadial as proof of what you're doing. So think about compliance as both client complying with their obligations and also you complying with your obligations back to the client. And lastly, the more reporting, the more information that's here in CloudRadial, now we start getting into much more evidence-based selling. So many times we walk into a situation, we just know it's wrong. We know that things are not optimized. We know they're not secure. We know they're not productive. And yet we need evidence to show the client that this isn't our feeling, this is actual fact. And so the more reporting that's in CloudRadial, the more that enables an evidence-based selling approach to the whole process with the client. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ricky for a deep dive on reporting. Ricky.
Sure thing. Thank you very much, Jeff. Let me get my screen sharing situated. And make sure it's the right screen.
Looks good.
Good to you? Looks good to me.
Good.
All right. So there's a lot of stuff when it comes to putting your reports in here, right? In CloudRadial, I think one of the unique things that we do is that we really don't try to force you into what we think is right, which I know a lot of tools try to do. It's not always a bad thing, but I think the flexibility of the MSP is their power to choose whatever they want to and display that and whatever they feel is best. And there's a lot of different ways that you want that to work with what you have, but it's kind of difficult when you don't have a tool that can handle it all. And again, like Jeff was saying, as we'll see with those report archives, is we're not trying to force you into showing only certain bits. We want you ultimately to be able to kind of condense down what you think is important to the client and display it. Now, there's a whole journey here to think about. And as he also mentioned really briefly, we do have our own data gathering agent. I think I'd like to start the conversation probably around there. So there's a lot of options within CloudRadial, and I know there's a lot of stuff on screen right now. I'm currently sharing an image of our demo tenant, and this is a snapshot of what a tenant looks like when it's been very well set up. Like it's got, obviously this is very support focused, where a user will be able to go put in a ticket or go order stuff or go see their tickets or even get a bunch of knowledge-based articles. But we're talking more about on the left-hand side here, starting with the infrastructure part. And again, what our agent is doing is we're trying to shed some light on the stuff that you manage for them. The stuff that specifically the endpoints and the servers and the network devices that you're constantly monitor, you're constantly updating, and you also want to shed light on what is not being done, so that way you can turn it into both a revenue opportunity and maybe even a compliance discussion. So in our demo account, you can see that I've got just a ton of these computers loaded up in here, and it's kind of similar to what an RMM would pull in the first place. And there's probably going to be a lot of overlap in the type of information, but as you'll see in a minute, it's for a kind of a radically different purpose. The point is to be client facing. So initially what you get with this area is you've got all these different computers loaded up here in the endpoint section. And if I click on any one, like a certain Jeff Farris's, what I can see from a snapshot without clicking is it's his computer, he's on Windows 10, he's got a Dell, some high level info. Now, as a client, right, I may want to drill down, I may want to get a high level gist of the stuff in his computer, and I may not want to spend all my time in the technicality, and that's okay. So we're trying to summarize this in business friendly terms, right? What protection does he have running, right? Flashing it in red if it's out of date or if it's something that shouldn't be there, right? He's got drives, sure, and they're unencrypted. He's using OneDrive, which is good, but he's also storing a lot of stuff in cloud storage apps that are not sanctioned. So maybe we got a potential data leakage operation. Other things we can do as well with this agent is we can pull in configuration information. We can pull even like warranty and ship date informations for Dell's, Lenovo's, HP, and Windows computers. So as we look at all this stuff, I think a lot of times the initial reaction is to go like, well, yeah, like you might have a technical point of contact that wants to see this on a user by user basis. But like I said, it's really not to show them this. This is one part of it. The inventorying part is something that our current partners do somewhat, right? They want to use this to show maybe a technical point of contact, a high-level view within their portal, which is quite useful. It's more so how we store and sort that information. So you can see that I've got the same information every single client because it's running our agent. We've got looking for certain parameters. We're able to refine those and show those like this. And again, mileage may vary. You might have people that look at this and it is just way past them, right? So for the endpoints and the servers, we're using the same agent to get it, and we're capturing all of that again within the portal. We do have an integration with AVIC, which is how the network devices become possible. This actually pulls through those network devices and allows them to be visible in the portal, much like the other information we saw. And really the key for reporting for us here is how we take this and we can run it against a set of our compliance policies, and that plays really heavily into our reporting. And the idea being that, like, sure, you can show the client stuff like this that is somewhat technical, you know, a lot of raw data, but really what the client wants to understand is what are they supposed to take from this, right? What can they improve on this? What are they doing good on, right? It's not always about reprimanding and upselling. So what we do is we kind of let this be. This is brought in by our agent, and as you'll see, it's not necessarily required for operation in CloudRadial. Obviously, can be very helpful. So we're going to go ahead and minimize this tab, knowing that this is where all that information lives. We're going to work our way down to the compliance tab because this is where a lot of that additional reporting automation comes in, right? So in our policies, those are those rules I just mentioned. And one of the reasons that we have our own agent, because believe me, people ask all the time, it's like, do I have to? Do I have to? Yes, because we take that information, and because it's ours, we're able to standardize it across the board. And standardization allows us to run consistency and consistent rules against it. So the clients are no longer worried about, do I have an SSD? They don't know what RAM is. They're worried about what 8 gigs versus 16 gigs. They don't have to understand that. All they have to do is understand this, right? And these are breaking down the categories of business operations. So we're taking the server room talk, elevating it to boardroom talk, and we're letting you as the account managers of that client help them figure out what they have to do better, right? So again, they're not seeing the security concerns based off of a CPU's age, or I'm sorry, the compliance and productivity parts. They're able to quickly kind of get this broken down in this red, yellow, green stoplight report. A bit more technically, right, still not too crazy. What we can do is, instead of looking at the summary view, which again is intended for the client's quick glance, for the MSP, they may be more interested in something like this, which is the actual asset rule view. So you can see, for example, my endpoint section, I've got all these different rules applying to these endpoints, such as, do they have the right third-party AV solution? Do they have encryption on their drive? Or are they maybe not mapping to their desktop with OneDrive, right? So basically, the goal here is that we take the agent, it's automatically reporting in, it is a set it and forget it thing. It runs whatever it finds against these policies, and you can see that it's finding who is accepting this policy, who's failing the policy, right? So we're tallying up those that are exceptions to this rule, and we're marking them as a risk score. And you can see that at the top, I've got a category, a pretty hefty risk score. And as I click on these individual policies, I can see all the people within this organization that have this issue. And what you saw at the very beginning, the way it marks things as red or green or yellow, is based off of a scoring methodology and logic that builds off of this infrastructure stuff. So it's actually kind of cool, because at this point, what you're doing is you're putting a machine on their environment, which again, at first glance is at the very least an inventory solution. But as you kind of think about it, you go like, oh, well, if you customize your policy rules, you've now got standards that you can apply at scale throughout your entire organization. So if you are a staunch believer that everybody should have Bitdefender, right? You set that as your security rule and you execute, and then that way you get results showing you who's not doing that, right? Drive encryptions, certainly aging of machines and warranty and ship date information. You can set these triggers off these policies, so that way you can be alerted even of when these policies are broken. There is customization to these. I get this question a lot as well. Can we customize? And there's kind of a limitation to that. You certainly can customize what the parameters of certain policies are. So for example, if I'm looking for a specific antivirus, right? I go like, oh, it's from a specific vendor. Of course, we're gonna let you put in whatever you like in there. But sometimes people ask me, it's like, well, what about for something very specific with like a registry key? We wanna look at that. We wanna look at something on Active Directory. And it's really not that complex, right? We're looking for high level things that are client relevant. You can open these things up in tickets, like I mentioned before. You can even have these route to your favorite PSA, right? You can have it go to Autotask as you like. But really the core goal and kind of a mixture of this is, again, the core takeaway is, if this helps you and to standardize your processes and drive that client discussion, that is fantastic. That is what we're trying to go for at CloudRadial. And if it does to a degree and you need addendums to this, or if it doesn't, it's not a deal breaker, because CloudRadial was designed to be, again, this open platform that kind of gives you the freedom to do whatever you want with your reporting. So that's where a lot of times I talk to a lot of clients. So I'm coming at it from working with many, many MSPs and figuring out how they can use CloudRadial to kind of empower their client experience. So this is certainly used by a lot of people for various degrees, right? But for those that need more and want to do something else, there's also the reports archives. And this is what Jeff was mentioning earlier. So in any matter of things that you want to run reports against, that is relegated over here. And this is super powerful for many reasons, but practically speaking, the idea is that you do so much stuff for your clients. You have so many different tools, you have so many different processes, and it's a shame to not get credit for it, not only because it's something that proves that you're doing it, but also from a compliancy perspective, from potentially accountability. So you want to be able to say like, yeah, we've been seeing things failing for months for backup reports and you never wanted that solution. Capturing that in a way that doesn't just generate a ton of noise, right? Or you don't slap down 500 reports on QBR day and you say, hey, let's go through these and see, last month we did this. It allows you to kind of keep your automation focused on the here and the now, while also storing the past stuff without drowning in the noise. So what you're seeing right here in this screen share is that in this demo account, we've got a bunch of different folders just with example stuff, right? So whether it's an AV reports or your Windows Defender or WebRoot, whatever it is really, you can add an archive to hold these reports within CloudRadial, right? You name your folder whatever you like. And there are certain alert triggers you can set. So besides just retaining alerts for a certain amount of days, you can also set these triggers to say, hey, let me know when things don't come in, right? If some automation breaks, we can do that. Or if text is and is not included in there, we can kind of set some alert triggers there too. And kind of like with the policies, right? When I showed you before, a policy maybe we might find an exception and that might trigger an alert. You can open a ticket that way. It's the same story here. If you wanted to open up a ticket, we can route this whatever way you want to. But that's not necessarily the point. It's very core basic. It gives you a way to house your stuff. And then sure enough, right? Like for example, in this Veeam report one, I've got the folder open. Here it is. This one has nothing in it, but it's just a matter of either adding whatever I need in there. I can do that at bulk. So if I have a lot of historic stuff that I don't need to set automation for right now, I can add that in there. But ideally, to alleviate the day-to-day and the work that a lot of account managers have to do manually, simple, right? Each one of these folders has their own email address. You set it, you go, it goes in there, and all of a sudden you're getting credit for the stuff you're doing in a way that doesn't drown everybody out. I want to point out that this is a very popular feature again because it gives you the ability to do whatever you want with the portal, right? As a portal, you should be the one in control of what makes most sense for your clients to see. So again, if it's an addendum to the policies and the infrastructure stuff, if you think that maybe the RMM reports stand on their own, that's okay. Really, anything that you think should be client-facing can go in here. A special shout out, I think, to Jeff and his team for thinking a lot of stuff ahead of time, because if you look at this, something that may not immediately come to mind for people is this is kind of a hefty amount of folders, and there may even be more. And scaling that, right? We always think about scalability and feasibility across 50 clients. And if 50 clients need 10 folders each, that may be reasonable. And all of a sudden, that's 500 things you might have to go set up manually. And there's a lot of logistics in there. And I think something very powerful that we have as well is instead of having to build each one of these folders one by one, client by client, client by client, what you can do is at a global level, you can basically define these report archives. So you can say like, hey, I don't want everyone to have to get a backup folder one by one. I actually want to tell CloudRadial from one area that they get the backup folders. So again, forgive me for jumping around, but the core answer here is that you can build these from a global perspective, right? You can see that a lot of the ones that I already have built in here, like the AV ones, the AVIC ones, you name it, I'm not doing one by one. I have a central area. It puts them out to all of my clients, and from one screen in one area, I can just grab the emails and set it and forget it. So that way, not only are you doing this once, right? You're just making sure that that is checked off as part of an onboarding process, but also as you provision clients into CloudRadial, as you standardize those account management processes, you've got all of that stuff built in there. This will automatically create the report folder. So that just becomes one thing to check off, right? We started the service, they're using the service, we set off the report, and that's it. And all of a sudden, that has alleviated so much potential back and forth work between all of this. Now, this is a really big discussion. And I know just prior to this, we got done with a discussion on assessments, which lives right up here. And there's a very interesting kind of mix between all of these things, because you've got reporting in any kind of way you want it, right? You've got your infrastructure reporting based off of just the raw data we have. You've got the policies, which kind of give you actionable things. You've got the report archives, which give you a way to bring in whatever you want. Again, we just talked about assessments, which basically give you a manual option to add your questions and still fits in reporting. Another really powerful feature that we do that's actually kind of simple, which is good, is the Office 365 reporting. And this comes up a lot as well when I talk to people. A lot of people out there are having to run license counts manually for their users, or maybe check out adoption data and have to present that. CloudRadial has a really kind of solid connection to 365. So again, we're going to minimize the compliance tab. I kind of jumped from infrastructure to compliance. We're going to go kind of backfill. Really, this quadrant, infrastructure, usage, security, compliance, is your reporting chunk where a lot of the stuff goes. And this is out of the view of your typical end user. A lot of the stuff that you're seeing down here in these options would be visible only in an admin environment. So usage here is where our Office 365 information lives. And you can see that just via our connection to there that you would set up at the beginning in your tenant, you're able to pull through stuff like adoption data, right? Immediately. There's your users, there's Jeff's, his email adoption, how many things it has his email, when it was created, last activity, and we can do that across Teams and Yammer and SharePoint, and even the data used across like a SharePoint site, right? How much has even allocated? What's this file count on there? Last activity. And very popular is the license counts, because of course, license management can be kind of a pain, and clients want to see where they're at and what they have and who has it. Having something like this where I'm able to quickly recall, oh, 365 business standards, okay, click. Well, here's the SKU, I can download this whenever I feel like. I can see who's attributed to that. That all lives inside the portal. So an account manager is now free to focus on things that basically reduce risk, increase revenue opportunities for both parties, and really just better their businesses on both sides. They're not stuck repeating what happened last month with licenses, or repeating what security alerts came in. That's all in the portal at a point in time that they feel like whenever they want. So that's a lot of the usages function in here. Security kind of follows a similar mindset. Security breaks down reporting in a bit of a different way. Down here at the bottom, like email and logins, for example, same thing with that connection to Microsoft. We're able to pull back email activity and kind of report on that in a live fashion. The logins, for example, also gives us insight into the multi-factor authentication, the MFA status for each one of the clients. With an Azure P1 license, we can hook up that connection. We can show you within the portal, within the context of everything, which users do and don't have it, which comes in very handy for this data breaches one. So like what Jeff was saying at the beginning, he mentioned that we have something with Have I Been Pawned? And what it does is whenever you load up users into CloudRadial, we will just off the bat put them in here. We will be able to tell you what the username it is. We'll run their email against that Have I Been Pawned database, and we'll tell you where they've been breached, and we'll cross-reference that next to the MFA information, making for a very easy discussion, right? There's not much work indicated here. Jeff's been a very bad boy. He's got 12 breaches. I can tell you exactly what breaches he's been on as well, and I can tell you that he doesn't have MFA, which is not a great move, but that's okay. It's not his real account. We're cool. So
yeah, one of the things I want to interject here real quick, Ricky, too, on the data breaches, the goal in all of this is to drive the discussion with your clients, right? So one of the things that, because it seems like it does so much, it seems like it would just do the next thing, which would be dark web monitoring, right? And so this comes back a lot. Well, does it do dark web monitoring? Yes and no, right? The Have I Been Pawned stuff can basically announce breaches that occurred 3 years ago. And so it's never going to be current data. It's never going to be real-time data when somebody's email shows up. It's not the point of it. The point is to be able to show clients, because almost everybody's in that breach somewhere. The main thing is to use this as an evidence-based sales technique to show people that their emails are always at risk. And then basically the only way to protect yourself is to have these other tools like multi-factor and other security measures to make sure that people are safe. So there's a fine line between the tools that are out there to service the MSP's technical requirements, and then there's another set of tools, which is where we fall on, which is basically using that to drive a sales call or an actionable item with a client. And so a lot of stuff sometimes it gets confusing because it looks so much like it's the service side of things, but again, everything you're seeing here is the client-facing side of things.
yeah, and there's something else to the overall wrap up. So I know I'm showing a lot of information in various different areas and pockets, and sometimes like the whole point of this is to kind of scale yourself as an MSP and also just provide a modern experience for clients. A portal does a lot of things that obviously like a piece of paper can't, which is it can change on a day-to-day basis without you having to update it every single time. But sometimes you just need that, right? And I know we haven't talked about the VCIO component. That's not really what we're talking about today, but there is a way that we can take not only the information we're looking at with the policies and the infrastructure and maybe some of the MFA information, and we can run kind of like your more traditional reports. CloudRadial does have that capability in there. I'm going to briefly stop at the planner, right? I know, again, it's not quite the discussion, but it's not just about ultimately showing them all these things. The next step after showing them what you want to do is building an actionable plan to act on it. And again, this demo account has kind of a filled out planner, but the core concept is actually pretty simple. I mean, if we look at maybe one of my other tenants here, you can see that the idea is that you've got something more like this, right? You've got your kind of column-based view where you're able to say, hey, we're seeing this data point, we're correlating the fact that your backups have been failing and your policies and security are doing bad. So that way, whenever you do come to lay out a roadmap for a managed security solution, you're not coming at it from a generic, like, I think you should do security because security is important. You're coming at it by saying, this is what's important. At the very least, should the client say no, you have that logged. So between the reports themselves, between the planner view, again, what I was going to say is that within the CloudRadial itself, you can kind of figure out what you want within those actual kind of paper reports, and you can decide what goes in there. So under partner and settings, we're going to go over here to report layouts, and you can see that there's a lot of stuff within CloudRadial. Now, nothing that you can get from this report isn't already in the portal, but again, your typical formal view. So as you customize it, you may want one of just those planners, or maybe just the policies, or maybe you really want a warranty report. You want that kind of listed out officially, or maybe a license report. You can kind of choose exactly what goes in there. And then once you have built out your different versions of the reports, as we have, the goal is that come report day, come QBR day, come the day where you want to show them this in one consolidated view and they don't necessarily need to go through the portal, or you want to take a point in time snapshot, you would click on your client, you would click on the report option from back here, and you would basically be able to say, hey, give me a monthly report. And then CloudRadial is going to put all that information together for you. It's going to come out with a branded report with a nice background image with your logo at the top. Currently what's happening is it's running it, and then here it goes. So we've got this popping up right now. And this report is our consolidated monthly report from a bunch of data, so don't be alarmed by the fact that it is near 90 pages. But right, everything has been captured in here whenever you feel like. So if you do need that more traditional thing, the users you manage, where they were at with the policies, where the account planner status was and the remediation efforts, as well as, scrolling down very quickly, right, the breakdown of all of the computers, the endpoint summary, all this stuff can be done in ways that make sense for you. So very, very flexible platform overall as far as reporting goes, because it's really up to you on what you want to show them. But if you put it all in one place, at the very least, you can kind of pull things out consistently, which I think, I speak for a lot of people, as a big pain point, is making sure that your biggest client and your smallest client can have a consistent experience both in their reporting and their QBRs and everything. And you just scale up the amount of things you do for them, but you kind of funnel it in the same way. That's usually.
I think the fun part when it comes to CloudRadial reporting, if you've ever sent a report to a client and the client asks you, what am I supposed to do with this? Or what does this mean, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that's the idea of sometimes we produce paper and reports because we can, not because they're useful. And one of the things we're trying to do in CloudRadial very solidly is to make sure when the clients see it through these, the red, amber, and green reporting through the highlights, to be able to show the client that there's something here that needs to be done. And the reason it's here is because we want them to see it. And so I think as you think about the reporting aspects, again, what CloudRadial will let you do is go through that evaluation. Is just because you can produce a report for a client doesn't mean you should produce that report. And conversely, when you do produce reports for them, it ought to have an action associated with it. Because again, a report that doesn't necessarily show that, even if the action is don't make a change, everything is good, that can be an action too, but every report ought to drive to the client is, hey, this is okay, this is the things I need to focus on, and these are the things I need to focus on later. Again, reporting with a purpose as opposed to just reporting.